All right, everybody. Hello and welcome back. Happy Sunday. Hopefully everyone had a good week and a couple days off in between classes. So glad to have everybody in class here. As always, we do have three different platforms that we are running this off of. So those on our website, welcome. If you are on our website, you should be by week number 3 if you're in the right place here. Week number 2, if that's the one you're looking for, just go down a couple more spots and you'll see week number 3's Sunday Q&A. In addition to that, for those that are on YouTube or Facebook, welcome to yourselves as well. So keep in mind that we will be doing test questions, FAA test questions, basically checking your knowledge or challenging your knowledge as we move forward. So the main thing is that when we are looking at FAA test questions, the only folks that have access to the vote button is going to be on our website. It is free. If you register on our website, you can get to that stage. It's under our free online private pilot ground school. But if you are just on YouTube, you can go ahead and write that number down on a piece of paper. Please do not throw it in chat. You want to give the same opportunity for all the students that are attending to basically answer that potential test question. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and see what is on the agenda. It's going to be short and sweet for today. I'm going to try to keep it to about an hour. I don't want to waste anybody's time here. So what we're going to do is we will be talking about any course updates. We will go over a little bit about some testing strategies that I promised last week. And then we will go over the top missed questions in the private pilot course that I've seen over the last 2 weeks. We'll open it up to any questions that you may or may not have in regards to whether it's the private pilot course or one of our other courses that we do offer. And if you do need assistance, as per usual, we do have it in the notes section or the description section of all of our videos. We do offer the 20-minute one-on-ones, which are completely free. So if you are falling behind for whatever reason, if you're having any issues, with the material, if you're not really sure what license to get or what the order is to get the licenses, how to get a medical, what is the process to do it, you can follow that link on the screen there to the left of my image, or you can also find that in our Facebook group online. If you just search Check Ride Prep, we have a public Facebook group as well, so you can get additional information on that and basically schedule yourself in the event you're running behind or having any issues. All right, so for those of you, I saw a couple new faces on here, so welcome to those that are new. Keep in mind that we are just wrapped up our 3rd week of our free online private pilot ground school. The private pilot ground school started just after Thanksgiving on November 30th, and it will run through December 30th. So this coming Monday, we do have class on aircraft performance, so we'll be specifically talking about different performance things such as VY, VX, in terms of also the different tables that you would basically find within a POH or an AFM. So time, fuel, distance to climb or descent, cruise performance, takeoff numbers, those types of things. How do we actually compute that data? And then we'll also be talking about density altitude and how to actually compute density altitude using an E6B. So that will be tomorrow. Then for the holidays, we're off for the rest of the week. We'll scooter back here, not tomorrow, but the following Monday, and we'll wrap up the class on the 28th and the 29th. 28th will be flight planning. 29th will be basically safety related, so that is the physiology and human factors, CRM, which is crew resource management, single pilot resource management, SRM, and that will basically wrap up the course there. So you're more than welcome to join us. That starts at 5 p.m. Pacific time and runs to 8:30 p.m. And then for those that may have missed a class, you can always catch up on any of the replays on our website moving forward. The future classes that we do have come up is the remote pilot class. So if you are interested in flying a drone, that is coming out in January of 2021. That is going to be a live class. It is 6 lessons. It'll probably follow the same standard of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And we'll send out some registration information here moving forward. I believe that will be the last week of January, and it will basically be run into the first week of February. And we're just going to solidify that hopefully in the next day or two. CFI Ground School, the ones we've had our successful ones in November and December, so now we're moving on. January is pretty much full, but we do have space in our February and March class. We have a new CFI class, which is starting every single month, and it is basically 16 lessons, and each lesson is 4 hours apiece. So if you want more information about that, you can reach out to Rebecca. Her email is rebecca@checkride-prep.com. She can fill you in on additional stuff. For those that are members, this is not a course that we'll put out for free, but we do have the Garmin G1000 course that is coming out in the first quarter of next year. That will also come out roughly the same time as our app. So remember, We will have, or you will have, the ability to basically go through any of our courses, the quizzes, all the updates and everything else, either on an iPhone or an Android, whether it's a tablet or a phone. That will be coming out roughly the same time as well. But if you are a lifetime member with us, then you will have immediate access to that as soon as that's basically made available in your profile. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and get into what I want to cover for today. And we're going to kind of go into the testing side of things in terms of if you've ever taken a college class or if you want to stretch your mind back to high school here. Most of these should be pretty familiar if you've ever taken an SAT or ACT test. And the FAA exams, they're all going to be multiple choice. So the multiple choice exams, at least in the United States, are basically 3 choices, A, B, or C. If you're in Europe doing the EASA test, you've got a little bit more of a challenge because you got 4 questions instead of 3. So with this, they're all very basic principles and they should be things that we should know. Although 9 times out of 10, usually if I go through a student who didn't, necessarily pass the written, there's always kind of silly mistakes or stupid mistakes where they didn't necessarily read the entire question, or they answered so quickly they didn't look at the potential answers moving forward. We've probably all made these mistakes in the past. It doesn't have to be the FAA exam, just normal exams moving forward. So when you're doing it, always read the entire question, read what are the potential answers as well before you actually answer it, and then try to answer it in your mind first before scribbling it on the piece of paper, or in this case, digitally clicking the button. And the reason why I say read the entire question is there's a couple questions out there that are a little bit tricky. And like, for example, some of them are the altimeter questions where they basically tell you that if you're flying through a colder environment, what's going to happen with your true altitude, right? Which is, if it's colder, then that means that the airplane will be lower than the altimeter. So if you think about it for a couple seconds, you'll get the right answer. But majority, 90% of the students, even when we do the live classes, they just answer right away. And they assume that the altimeter is going to be lower instead of the airplane being lower. The altimeter is going to show higher than normal, and the airplane will be lower than normal. It's going to be closer to the ground in a colder environment if we don't change our barometric pressure setting. So if you as soon as you say that in class and you explain it, people have that light bulb moment, and then they realize they're never going to do that again. In addition to that, if you're unsure, there's usually going to be one wrong answer somewhere in there or more. And when we're looking at the wrong answers, just try to eliminate answers. And then from that point, if you can get it down to, remember, it's a 33% chance. If you can't eliminate an answer, if you can eliminate at least one of those, it turns into a 50% chance. And then from that point, you could basically do a educated guess moving forward. So use the process of elimination. This does save quite a bit of time. A lot of people as well will start to mark their answers on their exams. So just like what we have on our quizzes and our testing, you also have the ability to mark an answer on an exam or a test question on an exam should you want to go back to it in the future. So keep that in mind as well. A lot of times, especially with the FAA exams, it's going to have potentially one wrong answer and 2 answers that are good, and one is always better than the other. So an example of this is, what is the purpose of oil? Okay, so there are really 2 purposes of oil. The primary purpose is going to be for cooling. The secondary purpose is for lubrication. But a lot of students will say lubrication as the best answer, which is not the case. You have to go with the best answer, which is the primary purpose of oil is for the purposes of cooling the engine. Okay, so that's a common one as well. So when we're saying select the best answer, both answers are correct. The best answer in that example is obviously going to be for cooling purposes. Read every answer option. This is important before you choose a final answer. Sometimes you may skip whatever that best answer is. If in that example, if you said lubrication and you didn't necessarily read all the way down, that could also cause a problem as well. Answer the questions you know first. This is a pretty common one. I kind of did this strategy when I was going through all my FAA exams. So I would run through all the questions that I knew immediately and kind of do a brain dump while I was on the test. And then I would go back to the harder questions, or for me, I didn't like the math ones or the E6B ones. So I would skip those till the very end. I would get, 60% of the test done in the first 15, 20 minutes. And then I basically had, a couple hours to work on any other questions that, I want to spend some more time on. So this is kind of an easy strategy. Plus, it also makes you mentally feel like you're doing really well if you're getting the majority of the test out of the way. If there are seemingly two correct answers, so like I gave you the example with the oil, or for example, there might be something where it says all of the above. It's always going to be all of the above for this specific test. So keep that in mind as well. In addition to that, if you go to the testing center and you're easily distracted, what I could recommend is, and we've all been to testing. We've all done testing at some point in our life. And I don't know if anybody ever feels like this. I kind of get this way where you're working on a test and everybody's kind of in that same room. And then you start to see people shuffle out and you hear people clicking off and basically ruffling their papers. And it can be rather, distracting, as if, what did they do that's so well that they basically went through this entire test. They got 90% and now they're done. And, you're still sitting here. So, try to, these are all computer exams. Try to select a computer away from the door, the entry door. The other things I can tell you, besides just bringing your normal material, what helped me, especially like on my ATP exam, which is a longer one, just bring some earplugs and shove them in your ears. It kind of helps you tune out what other people are doing, whether it's the sniffles or ruffling their papers or when they are departing the testing center as well. Sometimes that can help as well. The other thing moving forward as well is going to be the FAA testing supplement. So a lot of people don't really utilize the testing supplement or really understand it very well. So the things I want to point out in it, and the reason why it's pretty much on all of our pages moving forward, if you look at every single one of our lessons, at the very bottom of the lesson, you're going to see a copy of the private pilot testing supplement in the private pilot class. The reason why that's there is I want you to download it and basically thumb through it and see what is actually in there. And the reason why that is if you pay attention to the appendix here, these are all legends that can actually help you answer questions while you're on the exam. And if you've never looked at this in your life, most people would skip this and go to whatever the testing figure is that it's basically asking you. So, for example, a couple of the test questions out there will ask you to identify airspace, and if maybe you're rusty identifying airspace, remember that there is the legend for the sectional chart there for the aeronautical chart. So that could also help you with the color coding and identify, is that a class Delta, is that a class Echo, whatever it may or may not be. Beyond that as well, a lot of people are having trouble with some of the weather stuff. So I did throw the weather example on here. We're going to go through this TAF a little bit later on in the class here. But with the weather stuff, you don't need to be an expert with every single code out there. What I would do is if you look at test figures, I think it's 13, 14, 15, and 16 on this testing supplement, those are the majority of the weather questions. So if you can decipher this entire TAF, that's pretty much going to be the main TAF that you'll be asked about on your FAA written. So don't open Pandora's box and assume that you need to know absolutely everything under the sun. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of these little codifications when we're looking at TAFs and METARs. And the ones that I would pay attention to are the ones that are in the testing supplement, because 9 out of 10 of the questions are going to revolve around what you see here, at least for the terminal aerodrome forecast as shown. All right, everybody. So with that, what we're going to do, John is asking, can you take this book to the test? That is a negative. You were actually handed this book by the testing administrator when you check in. The reason why they keep it is they don't want people to mark it up and potentially cheat with answers. So you'll get a fresh copy of this moving forward, but just know that the appendix is at the front to kind of help you. Same thing with the instrument exam. There's an appendix as well in there, which helps students quite frequently as well. Okay. How similar are the test questions to the FAA testing supplement? Actually fairly similar. A lot of the examples that we're going to be looking at, Charlie, today, this is directly from the FAA testing supplement, this figure 15, and I'll show you 4 questions in regards to the TAF towards the very end of class moving forward, all right? All right, let's go ahead and take a look at it. We're going to start off with the private pilot questions, which is what we're going to be covering for the purposes of today. If you have any additional questions or anything like that, you can let us know in the chat. We'll answer them at the very end. If you have an FAA test question that you're struggling with, please give me not only the question, but the potential answers so we can review those here. All right, so this should be fairly easy, but like I said, these are the ones that we see majority of people missing here. So moving forward, remember that if you are on YouTube or Facebook, just write your potential answer down on a piece of paper. So select the 4 fundamentals involved in maneuvering an aircraft. Is it A, aircraft power, pitch, bank, and trim, B, starting, taxiing, takeoff, and landing, or C, straight and level flights, turns, climbs, and descents? Right, I'll give everyone another 60 seconds or so here. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at it since almost everybody's got their answer in here. And I am going to publish the results. So good job, everybody. That was fairly easy. Like I said, majority of folks who show up for these weekend classes because they're extra, you guys usually have no problems with these questions, but I try to find some that are going to be a little bit more challenging moving forward. So 100%. So good job, everybody. Straight level flight, turns, climbs, and descents. All right, next one that we've got is going to be dealing with an emergency situation. So I'm going to go ahead and reopen the poll here. And with this, if an emergency situation requires a downwind landing, pilots should expect a faster, is it A, airspeed at touchdown, a longer ground roll, and better control throughout the landing roll, B, ground speed at touchdown, a longer ground roll, and the likelihood of overshooting the desired touchdown point, or C, ground speed at touchdown, a shorter ground roll, and a likelihood of undershooting the desired touchdown point. If you are on YouTube, feel free to just write your answer down on a sticky note so that way you don't give away the answer potentially. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at it. So with this, we got majority of the class in with the correct answer here. So we got 90% with B and 9% with C. And the correct answer, as majority class has gotten, is actually going to be B. It's ground speed at touchdown, a longer ground roll, and the likelihood of overshooting the desired touchdown point. So for those that answered C, it's actually incorrect because the ground roll will be longer at this point, and there's actually a greater likelihood of overshooting the touchdown. So that's the reason why we can't say undershooting. And then if we want to get rid of that shorter to longer, that's the reason why C is incorrect on that. But good job, everybody. All right, what we're going to do moving forward is we've got only about 12 of these today. So like I said, we'll keep it short and sweet. So dealing with torque effect, where is torque effect the greatest in a single engine airplane? Is it A, low airspeed, high power, high angle of attack, B, low airspeed, low power, low angle of attack, or C, high airspeed, high power, and high angle of attack? All right, got about 30 seconds. Thank you, Fly with Brad and Michael. If you want to try it again, Michael, I know the website was just refreshed, so you're more than welcome to. And then if you go to the private pilot section of the website, the free online private pilot, and go down to the third week, there is a Sunday one, a Sunday Q&A in there. But either way. All right, just waiting on those last stragglers here. John, I will add it to the list for you, sir. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at it. We have about 76% of the class with A and 23% with B. Nobody on C. So once again, good job, everybody. You guys have the majority of the class with the correct answer here. It is going to be low airspeed, high power, and high angle of attack. So remember that the torque effect is actually increasing directly as a proportion of the engine power, airspeed, and then the actual airplane attitude. So if we have a higher power setting with a lower airspeed and the angle of attack is high, or that's when we're going to basically see the highest or the greatest torque effect. All right. So usually on departure, when we're climbing out, that's when we're going to be at full power. We'll be at a lower airspeed and we'll be at a higher angle of attack as we're departing an airport. That's most commonly where we're going to actually end up seeing this. But good job, everybody. Next one we have is another engine question that's dealing with a constant speed prop that I saw a lot of people miss moving forward. So with this is a precaution for the operation of an engine equipped with a constant speed propeller is to do what? Is it A, avoid high RPM settings with high manifold pressure? B, avoid high manifold pressure settings with low RPM, or C, always use a rich mixture with high RPM settings? I'll give you guys a minute on that. Thank you to all the moderators out there that are working. Thank you, Missy. Thank you, Nick. All right, go ahead and wrap it up here. I'll give you guys just a couple extra seconds since I see people are still thinking about this. Got a couple people with rapid answers though, like 3 seconds and this question's up. And for those that need to jog your memory, the constant speed prop. A constant speed prop is one that allows you to adjust the pitch angle of the propeller, if that kind of helps. All right, looks like everybody's got their answer in. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. We've got 15% with A, 76% with B, 7% with C for the class here. So everybody has the correct answer here. Majority of the class, once again, has the correct answer. It's B. You want to avoid high manifold pressure settings with a low RPM. So when we're talking about a constant speed prop, we're going to basically put an additional indicator inside the cockpit. So normally, with a single engine, we are basically looking at one specific dial, which is usually going to be an RPM. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add an additional indication for manifold pressure in addition to the standard RPM gauge. And we usually call that the TAC, right? So when we're looking at it, the propeller is going to control the change of the pitch angle of the propeller, or it actually changes that blade angle on the propeller. And it governs the RPM, which is indicated on the tachometer. So on most airplanes for any given RPM, there's actually a manifold pressure that should not be exceeded. So if it exceeds that amount of manifold pressure, that could be a big issue. So a lot of times when we're flying a more complex airplane such as this, you're going to get, normally we always talk about an RPM setting. Usually what we're doing is we're going to give you a manifold pressure setting and also an RPM setting. So a lot of times you're going to hear 25 squared. Okay, so a lot of times we square things. And what we mean by that is we might have 25, we do it this way. We might have 25 inches of manifold pressure and we might have 2,500 RPM. So if I said 25 squared, that's what I mean. If I say 24 squared, same thing, 24 inches of manifold pressure and 2,400 RPMs. But the main thing is that we want to avoid high manifold pressure settings with low RPMs. Now the benefit, obviously, as we know with a constant speed propeller, is that a fixed pitch propeller, which is the majority of what you learn on, that is forged at the factory. We cannot change the blade angle on that. And it's really, truly a compromise between a best climb, it's a climb prop and a cruise prop. So it can't be all things to, in all situations. So with a constant speed prop, even though they're more complicated, we can choose the best angle on the propeller for climb, which will take a larger bite, and then we can actually choose a good angle for cruise. And the one thing that you'll pay attention to is if you do end up flying a constant speed prop, hopefully a little bit later in your career, you will pay attention to the performance section, and based upon your altitude, it will have recommendations based upon fuel consumption, etc., in terms of what are the best settings when you're in cruise or level flight, which is where we spend the majority of our time. So good job, everybody. The next one is an NTSB question. So this is basically asking you when you need an immediate notification. So which incident requires an immediate notification to the nearest NTSB field office? So we remember we covered this in the regulations section. Is it going to be A, forced landing due to engine failure, B, landing gear damage due to a hard landing, or C, flight control system malfunction or failure? Robert Ayala, so when we're talking about manifold pressure, it's once again dependent upon the airplane. 25 inches of manifold and 2,500 RPMs is fairly standard on a climb, but usually when we're taking off, it's going to exceed that. So most airplanes that I've flown are somewhere around 27 or 28 inches, and then whatever the highest RPM setting is. And then what we do is once we're up 500 feet or 1,000 feet, we'll start to pull that back so we don't overwork the engine, and we'll get to, let's say, 25 squared in the climb, and then we have to adjust it as we climb. Poll. Sorry, guys. See what happens when you get off on a tangent, everybody? Thanks, Nick. All right, I'll give you guys another 30 or 40 seconds on that. All right, looks like we've got almost everybody in here. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the population has here. So we got 33% with C and 66% with A. All right, so this is glad to see people are not getting it, which is good. So correct answer here, with only a third of the class is actually C. It's a flight control system malfunction or failure. Forced landing due to engine failure is not an immediate one. That would be upon the request within 10 days if they do request it. Remember that we went through a list of 8 potential items. So the 8th one on the list was actually flight control system malfunction or failure. Some other ones that were also on the list, just to kind of jog your memory, would be 50% loss of your digital screen. So if you were flying a G1000 and you had a PFD and MFD, if you lost half of it, that's an immediate notification. If you caused $25,000 of damage or more based upon the ground, so if you were taxiing along and maybe dragged a hanger or ran into a hanger, that might qualify. If it's an inability for a crew member to basically, actually do their duties, then that's an immediate notification as well. So those are just a couple examples. But forced landing due to engine failure is unfortunately not one of them. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at an airspace question here. So with this, I've kind of blown up the figure for you guys. And the question is what are the basic VFR weather minima required for takeoff at the Onawa Airport, Kilo 36 Airport during the day? So you have your three answers. I zoomed in on the chart. So obviously the first step, if you had the full-size chart, would obviously be try to figure out where this airport is. So it's dead center on the screen. So I'll give everyone about 60 seconds on this. Need a triangle chart for the NTSB reporting? Yeah. So Pilotus is asking about flight controls. So flight controls, our major flight controls that we have three, right? So we have our ailerons for roll, we have our rudder for yaw, and we have our elevator for pitch, right? So those are our major flight controls. We have secondary flight controls. For most of us, that would be our trim or trim tabs. And then at larger airplanes, those would be spoilers, etc. if you're on a jet or something like that. The Real Wild West, it's actually on our website, sir. So most people are watching this live on our site, but if you want to answer the questions, you can feel free just write it down on a piece of paper and we'll go over it here in a second. Just making sure everybody gets the right answer without giving away the question. All right. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at it. So with this, we've got kind of a split class. So it's about 50-50 here with A and C. Nobody said B, so that's a good idea. So first thing that we want to do is obviously identify where this airport is. So obviously it's dead center where the red dot is there for Onwa Airport, if I'm pronouncing that even remotely correctly. And it's specifically giving us a couple pieces of information. So it wants to know what are the weather minimum for the airport during the day. That's the other key part of it. So first thing is what type of airspace is this? So what we can see is this is actually class Gulf airspace from surface up to 1,200 feet AGL. And that's kind of the first step. We know it basically goes up to 1,200 feet because there's no shading around it or anything else. If I was standing right up here on the ground next to this big X at the top, then this would be class Gulf from surface to 700, because remember that this purple shade or this magenta shade that's surrounding this area, that is telling you that class Echo starts at 700 feet AGL and goes up to but not including 17,000, or up to but not including 18,000. So when we're looking at this airport, we know that we are in class Gulf. And if we go back to that triangle that we draw, so remember, we have that airspace triangle kind of, if you need to draw that, that does help out quite a bit. So I'm not going to draw the entire thing, but I will draw the one quadrant where we find that information. So remember, it's basically a triangle within a triangle. And what we're looking at is right here. So this is representing basically the bottom of the pyramid is representing the surface up to 1,200 feet AGL. And if you guys remember, it's 1 statute mile clear of clouds. So that is going to be the correct answer. In addition to that, if it was nighttime and they changed the way that they're answering or asking the question, nighttime would be a little bit different. So if it was nighttime, then what we've got is 3 statute miles of visibility, 1,000 above, 500 feet below, and 2,000 feet horizontally in the same airspace. But that is only going to be class Gulf at night, and that would be from the surface to 10,000 feet. So going back to the answers here, the best answer that we have, or really the only answer that's going to work in this case, is going to be C, which is 1 statute mile clear of clouds. So if I change this and I basically said, hey, this is going to be at night, then the answer becomes A. But in this case, that is a daytime question there. So good job, everybody. All right, let's go ahead and move on. And the next one that usually gets a lot of people on the FAA exam is these advisory circulars. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the poll here. And an advisory circular containing subject matter specifically related to airmen are issued under the subject number what? Is it 60, 70, or 90? Exactly, Robert. Remember the banana or my moon? I don't draw moons very well. You have the triangle hanging up on your bedroom. Yeah. If you draw that triangle 10 or 15 times, I guarantee you'll memorize it. It's that simple. All right, give everyone about another 30 seconds here. Yeah, and Alex on YouTube, if you just want to write it down on a piece of paper, by all means, feel free to do so, just so you're not giving away the answer for everybody else. All right, let's take a look at it. I got one straggler just answering right now, so I'm going to go ahead and publish those results. We got 63% with A, 9% with B, and 27% with C. I don't know how many people here are going to let us know if that was purely guessing. There are three different questions that are revolved around this. They just kind of change, obviously, the subject matter code number. So what we have here is the correct answer is actually going to be A. And remember, when we're dealing with ACs and advisory circulars are basically either checklists or informations that are printed, and then the numbers actually relate to the Federal Aviation subchapter titles, and then they correspond to basically specific parts of a regulation. So there's effectively 4 different parts that we worry about. We've got basically Section 20, Section 60, 70, and 90. Some of these should be, you should remember. So for example, Part 60 or Section 60 is really dealing with airmen. It's the same course. It's basically the same way that it corresponds inside the FAR. And then Part 90 is your air traffic control or air traffic, and I'm going to abbreviate it, just general operating rules. Okay. The others, 20 and 70, they're a little bit more obscure, but 20 is dealing specifically with aircraft, and 70 is basically dealing with airspace. So with this question, what they'll do is I think there's 3 different questions in the FAA exam that are potential. And with it, what they're going to do is they will basically just change the wording here. Instead of saying airmen, they might say aircraft or air traffic control or airspace. And then they're just going to want you to select the appropriate number. So for these, you can kind of correlate it back to the Federal Aviation regulations and the generalized information within that section. Part 20 and 70, we don't really use very frequently in the FAR, so those you might want to add to a note card or something, or write those down on a separate piece of paper. All right, moving forward, the next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to start moving into the weather section here. And like I said, I will have you go over a METAR and a TAF. So this is dealing with the formation of frost, and we didn't spend too much time on frost or icing. But which conditions result in the formation of frost? Is it A, the temperature of the collecting surface is at or below freezing when small droplets of moisture fall on the surface? B, the temperature of the collecting surface is at or below the dew point of the adjacent air and the dew point is below freezing? Or C, the temperature of the surrounding air is at or below freezing when small drops of moisture fall on the collecting surface? I'll give everyone about 60 seconds on this one. Samuel, so in terms of the ACs that you can download, I can pull it up on the website and you can take a look at it. The only one that you need to know about for the purposes of a private pilot check ride are obviously going to be the ones that I just showed you on the screen, which is basically 20, 60, 70, and 90. There are quite a bit more than just those numbers, though, that are available. All right, give you guys another 30 seconds or so. All right, and before I go over that, this is going to be in regards to Samuel's question from YouTube here. So he was asking, what are all of the different potential, ACs that are out there? So I'm just going to pop up this. This is directly from the FAA website. So if you actually go to the FAA website and you go to regulations and policies, and it's the first one here on the upper left, which is advisory circulars. I just want you to see that, there are a ton of different, right? So the ones that we're worrying about are going to be aircraft, which is part 20 there, airmen, which is 60, airspace, which is 70, and then 90. And then you can see it goes above and beyond those sections for air carriers, different schools. Airports have their own circulars, navigation facilities, commercial space transportation has basically the tail end of it as well. And then they have different subparts as well. So you can see within part 90, they've got 91, 97, 99. So they're just looking for you to basically determine what are the major groupings, if you will. So the groupings basically correlate to the FAR, if you want to look at them. And then within each section, if we were to basically open up each one of these, then there are tons of different circulars within each one of these, and you could basically dissect them out to determine if it's something that is pertinent or not. And a lot of them basically are not at this point. A lot of them are actually basically invalid because they've expired. They've basically been superseded by something else. All right, going back to the test question here. What we've got is, let's go ahead and take a look at it. We got 14% with A, 57% with B, and 28% with C. So looks like majority of the class has it, not necessarily a lot of people, but B is the correct answer. The temperature of the collecting surface is at or below the dew point of the adjacent air, and the dew point is below freezing. So the way that we look at frost is frost forms pretty much in the same way as dew. And the difference is that the dew point of the surrounding air must be colder than freezing. For those that answered C, if you said it was C, that's actually incorrect because ice will form in this situation. So if we have temperature of the surrounding air that's at or below freezing when small drops of moisture fall on the collecting surface, that actually causes ice, okay? And for those that answered A, where we're saying the temperature of the collecting surface is at or below freezing when small droplets of moisture fall on the surface, that is incorrect because that is also what we'll call ice as well. So best answer here is going to be B, or correct answer. All right, moving forward here, this is going to be dealing with another cloud question. So hopefully you guys remembered when we went over determining cloud heights using our dew point and our temperature in class the other day here. So with that, go ahead and open up the poll. What is the approximate base of the cumulus clouds if the surface air temperature is at 1,000 feet? MSL is going to be 70 degrees and the dew point is 48 degrees. Is it 4 or 5 or 6,000 feet MSL? Samuel, you are very welcome, sir. And this is one that you just want to memorize that formula that we talked about. There are about 3 potential FAA questions on the private pilot that basically correlate to this example. All right, we've got a few people still waiting on a few stragglers here. And it looks like we've got answers kind of across the board, kind of a split class on this one. So we're going to see if we can jog your memory. Remember that the formula that we're looking for, once you obviously have the formula, then it's basically very, very easy to figure out this, to put it into an equation. But the formula that we're looking for is basically going to be temperature minus dew point. And the number that we divide by is 4.4 times 1,000. Okay, so now it's just a matter of basically plugging in the numbers. So what I've got is I have my temperature and my dew point. So basically 70 degrees minus 48 degrees. And that's going to be divided by 4.4. I will leave the poll open for anybody that is still answering the question. So basically, if I take 70 less 48, that comes out to be 22 degrees. And I divide that by 4.4. I get 5. I multiply that by 1,000. And the correct answer here is going to give me 5,000 feet MSL. Okay, so because we're saying it's 5,000 feet MSL, now the only difference that we have is with this, we actually need to add 1,000 feet to it. And this is usually where people are getting it, they're getting it a little bit wrong here. So as I look at it, it's telling us that the temperature is at 1,000. So the correct answer here is going to be at 6,000 feet MSL. So that 1,000 feet is basically the field elevation. So you basically you use the same equation, you come up with the same answer of 5,000, but then we have to compensate for the field elevation of 1,000 feet. So we add 1,000 to 5,000, and that gives us 6,000 feet, which is where the base of those clouds are located at. So remember, looking at the equation, this was the slide that we had in class the other day, that you can estimate the base of the cumulus clouds by using the following formula. So temperature minus dew point, divide about 4.4 degrees, put that X over here, and then multiply by 1,000. But you do have to take into account the field elevation in order for you to come up with the correct answer with that. All right. Good job, everybody. Next thing we're going to deal with is more weather. So the rest of the class is just weather stuff. So this is dealing with thunderstorms in particular. I'm going to go ahead and bring up that test question, but the thunderstorms, which generally produce the most intense hazard to aircraft, are what? Is it squall line thunderstorms, steady state thunderstorms, or warm front thunderstorms? I'll give everyone about 60 seconds on that. Right, got about 30 seconds left. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at it. We've kind of have about, nobody answered with B, but it's kind of split between the squall line thunderstorms and the warm front thunderstorms. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what the differences are here. So the correct answer is actually going to be A. It is the squall line thunderstorms with the majority of the class. So remember that the squall line is considered a non-frontal thunderstorm, and it's basically a narrow band of activity. The lines are very, very long. The storms are very, very severe and often contains several or severe state steady thunderstorms. Which could be present, but still the most intense weather hazard to aircraft is going to be the squall line thunderstorms. So if you were to look at the squall line thunderstorms, you would obviously see something like this image from space on the right, where you basically have a long, narrow band of thunderstorms. and it's usually created by a pressure wave. So in front of a cold front, you have this pressure wave, and that part of that pressure wave is actually creating that upward force, which is, remember, there's three ingredients to create a thunderstorm. Number one is we need some type of uplifting force. We need moisture content and an unstable lapse rate. So that pressure wave is basically creating that uplifting force when we're looking at it, right? So with this, these are systems that can basically run across multiple states with larger cold fronts. In addition to that, it's something that we're not really going to be able to fly through or around as general aviation pilots. And best thing to do is just park the airplane, call it a day at that point, or sometimes these systems can pass in 4 to 6 hours. As you can see on the flip side of that, usually where the cold front is on this edge here, once everything passes, then the weather is a little bit better where you could then continue your journey, but it will take a couple hours for this system to pass. So that is the most severe system that we will encounter as general aviation pilots, or which might cause the most damage. So that is known as the squall line thunderstorm. All right. The next thing that we're going to deal with is going to be those TAFs that I mentioned at the very beginning. So these TAFs are pulled directly from that example that I showed you in the, the testing supplement. So at the very bottom of the screen, this is figure 15, and they're going to have a couple questions, a few different variations of the question. So referring to the figure at the bottom of the page, what is the valid period for the TAF for Memphis? Is it going to be A, B, or C? And I'll give everyone about 60 seconds on this one as well. All right, got about 30 more seconds there. I like that, Robert. Squish. So squall is like squish. It's going to squish you down. Whatever mnemonics help, or whatever analogies help. All right, got a few more people answering. I know these are quite long, so I'll give you guys another 15 or 20 seconds here to get those answers in. All right, so the question is it specifically asking what is the valid period for this TAF? So when we look at it, we obviously have a series of numbers, and I think where a couple people are getting this incorrect is some people are basically saying this right there. So the 12, 17, 20, if you were to break this up, this is basically the 12th day at 1720 Zulu, which is basically when the forecast came out. What it's asking for is what is the validity period? So we're actually looking for the next line here. So if we were to look at that next line, it's basically the 12th day from 1800 Zulu to the 13th day at 2400 Zulu. Okay, so that is going to correspond with the correct answer here of A. So just make sure that you kind of skip that first one. When we're dealing with METARs, we don't actually have a valid period. We just have the time and date of the actual issuance. Okay, so good job, everybody. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. It's going to deal with basically the same thing. So looking at the image at the bottom there, between these specific times, between 1000 Zulu and 1200 Zulu, what is the visibility in the forecast? Go ahead and open up the poll for that one. Half a statute mile, 3 statute miles, or 6 statute miles. Get about 3 more questions after that, and then we'll wrap it up and see if anybody else has any open questions. All right, I'll give you guys another 30 or 40 seconds here. All right, so kind of a split class again. We've got majority of class with the correct answer. So when it comes down to this, we are looking for basically the time period between 1000 Zulu and 1200 Zulu. So if we look at beyond the validity period, what we have is, you can kind of see all of the different times here. So if I kind of point them out to you, let's see, 12 to 22, here, here, here. We've got this one down at the very bottom here, and this one as well. So if you look at these, remember it's basically the date, and then it's going to be whatever day it is, and then whatever Zulu period it is. So what we're basically looking for is 10 to 12. So if I look at this, where the line actually starts is going to be right here, where it says becoming on the 13th day from 1000 Zulu to the 13th day at 1200 Zulu. We have wind is calm. And there's our magic number right there. 3 statute miles of visibility. We've got mist, which is our baby rain, our BR, and then sky clear, SKC. So correct answer on that one is going to be 3 statute miles. All right, good job, everybody. We get about 84% of the class with the correct answer there. All right, final one on this specific figure. Actually, second to final one. Let me go ahead and open this one up, and it's going to be the same thing. Look at the bottom to go ahead and take a look at it. What is the forecast wind for Memphis from 1600 Zulu until the end of the forecast? So I'll give everyone about 60 seconds on this as well. Daniel Rodriguez, thank you, sir. I will take a look at that. Travis, if you could look at that as well, sir. Is it on the private pilot one? Is that the quiz that you're referring to, Daniel? Samuel, prob is going to be probability of. So it's probability of something. Private pilot VORs. Thanks, Daniel. All right, got about a third of the class in. And Samuel or anyone else that was looking for that, what he was asking before is what does that mean, prob? And then it says 40 after it. So this is the probability of, or basically a 40% probability that these conditions will occur. Okay, so it may not always be 40. It could be 50, 60, it could be 20, whatever it may be. So that's basically just a conditional statement there. Thank you. I appreciate it, Daniel. All right, so taking a look at it, we're looking for the forecast information for this forecast from 1600 Zulu until the end of the forecast period. So once again, we kind of look at it, we break it up into the different segments. So I'll kind of just briefly point out the different forecasting periods, and what we'll do is we'll try to see if we can narrow down the actual forecast period for what we're looking for. So everything that I've underlined is basically a forecast period, and then everything after that is the forecast for that defined period that we're looking at. Okay, so what I mean by, you know, using the testing supplement to your advantage, just like what we're doing right now, is you can see a lot of the test questions are revolving around this same figure in the testing supplement. So if you can go through this entire you know, forecast and identify everything in here in the codes, then you'll be good to go for when it comes down to the test for the weather section. So what we're looking for is from 1600 Zulu until the end of the forecast, what is going to be the wind. And the only one that I can't really underline because the toolbar is right there is actually the one at the very bottom, which says from 13 to 16. It's basically the 13th day at 1600 Zulu. The wind is variable at 6 knots plus 6 SM. So plus the P is just greater than 6 statute miles of visibility, sky clear. So when we're looking at that, the correct answer here is actually going to be C. It's variable in direction at 6 knots. So when you read through these, like I said, if you can do it and basically figure out what the codes are. So the common codes that we have here are going to be haze, which is HZ. We obviously have the probability that we talked about before. So that's probability of something happening and the percentage after it. We've got thunderstorms. We've got CB at the end. So remember, this is cumulonimbus. So that's the only cloud type that we report in the TAF or the METAR. Anytime you have a P in front of a number, P6 is going to be greater than 6 statute miles. Showery rain, SHRA, at the very end of the second line. If I look at rain and snow, but this is basically, you can see that we've got a little descriptor there, or a modifier. So we've got minus RA. So it's basically light snow showers, or remember, it's minus RA is rain and then snow. BR is baby rain or mist, sky clear, and FG is fog. Okay, so if you can kind of go through these line by line and then point out the things that you may or may not know, that's going to be the best thing you can do. And then obviously the standardized stuff with the cloud conditions and the wind direction and velocity as well. All right, so that's really going to be it for that one. The next one I want to deal with in our last FAA test question is dealing with the TAF from Oklahoma City. And what it wants to know is, when does the sky become clear, right? So with that, I'll give you guys another minute and a half on this one. Correct. Nice job, Nick. All right, I'll give everyone about another 30 seconds here. All right, so let's see if we can go through it. I'll let you guys and gals still continue answering in the poll, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the entire one since this is our last one. So this is a TAF for Oklahoma City, and it was released on the 5th day at 11:30 Zulu time. Its validity period, remember, TAFs can be valid for 24 or 30 hours. So in this case, it's valid from the 5th day at 1200 Zulu to the 6th day at 1800 Zulu. And basically what we have is this first line here, this little line right here is going to be valid from the 5th day at 1200 Zulu to the 5th day at 1300 Zulu. So it's really only valid for 1 hour looking forward. So we have the conditions of wind of 140 at 8 knots, 5 statute miles visibility, mist, broken at 3000, and then it temporarily becomes on the 5th day at 1300 through the 5th day at 1600. So for a 3-hour period, it is 1.5 miles of statute, or 1.5 statute miles visibility, and our baby rain, which is our mist again. And then it becomes from the 5th day at 1600 Zulu. We have the following conditions. So 180 at 10 knots, greater than 6 statute miles, and sky clear. So that's part of it, right? In the TAF from OKC, the clear sky becomes what? So we're going to look at what happens after this condition. Then it becomes from the 5th day at 2200 through the 5th day at 2400. So this is basically a 2-hour window. Then we get these other conditions. So we have wind of 200 at 13, gusting to 20, 4 statute miles, showery rain, and overcast at 2000. So which one is going to best match during that? Okay, so what I see here is a bunch of people have answered B and C. And remember, when we are looking at this, anytime that we have the sky condition, so in our case, it says OVC. If it says 002 or 020 or 200, those are all different meanings. So 002 is basically 200 feet. 020 is 2,000 feet, and 20 or 200 is going to be 20,000 feet. That's basically flight level 200. So kind of watch out for the way that that is listed there. So in that case, it's definitely not overcast at 200. So B and C are incorrect. So the correct answer here is going to be A, which is at 2,000 feet during the forecast period between 2,200 and 2,400 Zulu, which we can see here. We've got 22 and 24. Those are the two numbers moving forward. The last bit of the line here we can go through as well. So we've got a probability of 40. So that's 40% chance of the following conditions happening from the 6th day at 00 Zulu to the 6th day at 0600. So during this 6-hour window, there's a 40% chance that we'll have 2 statute miles visibility. We've got the thunderstorms with rain, overcast at 800 feet with cumulonimbus, and then it becomes from the 6th day at 600 to the 6th day at 800. So a 2-hour window, we've got 210 at 15 knots, greater than 6 statute miles, and scattered at 4,000 feet. Okay. So once again, if you go through it, try to see if you can solve it yourself and see if you can just go into the book, take a photocopy of it, see if you can write it and decode it yourself. And that will really show if you have a good grasp or understanding of the material moving forward. So with that, what we're going to do is, like I said, don't want to take up too much of your time. So what I'll do is I will open it up to any questions that you may or may not have. It could be private pilot questions. It could be instrument questions. And I hope everybody has a fantastic day moving forward. Good weekend. For those that are in our private pilot class, we will see you on, tomorrow. Already end of the weekend, amazingly. So with that, thank you again for your time and for everybody for showing up. Like I said, I'll see everybody tomorrow for the private pilot course. We are doing the performance section of private pilot. So that's what's on the schedule for tomorrow. If you have any questions, I will stick around for a little bit and answer them. And I'll see what I can do. All right. So thanks again, everybody. Michael is asking, what is the equal sign at the very end? I am going to defer to Missy because I have even forgotten that one. Do you remember, Missy, what that is? The equal sign in the TAF? I want to say it's obscure, but don't hold me to that. I have to actually look that up. Charlie, have a good one, sir. Thanks again. Adios, Michael. Thank you again to all the moderators out there for providing your time. So thanks again, Nick and Missy today, and then all of our other moderators that are in all of our classes as well. Yeah, it's the equal sign for me is one that I always have to look up and kind of figure out. But I think it's actually in that decoder guide that I gave you guys as well. If you take a look at it. I'll see if I can find the answer here for you real quick, though. Adios, Michael. Have a good one. WW is asking for me to show you. Go back to the last one here. See if we can answer your question, WW. All right, so let's go back to the PowerPoint. And looking at the PowerPoint on, please explain the 180 on the second to last line, or before the wind velocity. Second to last line, 180. So I think you're talking about, and I'm going to clear this stuff so we don't have to look at it. Go ahead and erase it. All right, so the 180 is right here. I think that's what you're talking about. You can let me know if it's not, but this is just the wind direction and then the velocity. So that's basically wind is coming from 180 at 10 knots. That's all it is. Okay. So it's 180 degrees, 180 degrees. It's the only one that I see 180. Russell, welcome, sir. Let's see here. See you tomorrow, Michael. The equal sign, as per Missy, indicates the end of an individual TAF transmission. TAFs are bundled together and transmitted in a single document. So that right there basically means that it's the end of a TAF transmission. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that. John wants to review high and low pressure fronts. So with that, I actually can share with you a quick 3-minute video that will go over that, John. So it's the one that I was actually supposed to do in class the other day, but the system was not really working very well because of everybody on Netflix that day. But here you go. Here's a 3-minute video on the differences between fronts. This is all you do need to know for the purposes of a private pilot. So let's go ahead and watch it, and we'll be right back.
Air masses are large regions of air that have similar characteristics from the surrounding area. Air masses can form over places like warm tropical oceans, cold, dry polar regions, or even dry deserts. As air masses move over different regions, they will gradually take on the characteristics of the new region and begin to change. As air masses move across the Earth, they will eventually run into each other. The boundaries between these two air masses are referred to as fronts. Fronts are labeled in reference to the relative temperature of the air that is approaching and replacing the existing air mass. There are 4 types of fronts: warm fronts, cold fronts, stationary fronts, and occluded fronts. A warm front occurs when a warm air mass overtakes an air mass of a colder temperature. Warm fronts usually move slowly, around 10 to 25 miles per hour, and have a gradual slope that will slide over the top of a cooler air mass and move it out of the area. Warm fronts usually contain high humidity and have more stratiform or layered clouds along the frontal boundary. Drizzle and decreasing visibility will be present as temperatures rise. Once the front passes, rain showers are possible, followed by a gradual clearing. A cold front occurs when cold, dense air overtakes warmer air. Cold fronts move faster than warm fronts, averaging 25 to 30 miles per hour, but can go as fast as 60 miles per hour. Cold fronts stay close to the ground and have a steeper angle than a warm front. They will move across the ground and lift existing air at a very rapid rate. This rapid upward motion will cool the air and form cumulus clouds, which could eventually develop into thunderstorms or even form a line of thunderstorms called a squall line. Once the front passes, the weather will clear and improve with general wind flow from the west-northwest. A stationary front occurs when 2 air masses meet, but neither one moves the other out of the way. Stationary fronts can have a combination of weather from both a warm and cold front. These fronts can oscillate, but will generally linger around for several days before one of the air masses pushes the other air mass out of the way. The last type of front is called an occluded front. Occluded fronts form when a fast-moving cold front catches up to a slower-moving warm front. Cold front will then lift up the warm front and eventually interact with the air that is in front of the warm front. This stacking of fronts can give rise to a variety of weather conditions, from fog to thunderstorms.
All right, John, so hopefully that will give you or enlighten you a little bit about the front system. That was the video that I was supposed to play in class the other day. But if you have any questions in addition to that, that's really all you need to know is just what are the different types of fronts. There's 4 different types of fronts. how do they actually operate, and anything beyond that is going to be above and beyond what you need to know as a private pilot. Okay. All right, you are welcome. Any other questions out there before we head out for the weekend here? You're welcome, WW. Take care, Art. We'll see you later. Good night, WW. All right, everybody. Well, if there are no further questions, I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. And like I said, what we'll be doing tomorrow in our private pilot class is going to be covering our performance section. So with that, we can, if you do have any type of aircraft POH or AFM, then that will also be helpful, but it's not required. We're just going to be talking about what you would normally find within the POH or the AFM within the performance section. We'll go through plenty of examples. We'll also talk about density altitude. We'll talk about the VY, VX. We'll also talk about our landing distances and takeoff distances, basically the difference between our ground roll and actually clearing an obstacle, and move forward from that. So with that, I hope everybody has a fantastic evening. Like per usual, I will leave the chat open for you. Stay safe out there, and we'll see everybody in hopefully about 24 hours. Take care, everyone.